Hey, this is Wabi-sabi Podcast, and I'm your host, Adam Yasmin. If you're a first-time listener, thanks so much for joining. And if you're a subscriber, returning listener, thanks for coming back. And to everyone, welcome to Season 2. I'm super excited to continue and grow the show. Just want to give a quick shout-out to my Patreon supporters. You are a small but very integral group that help host the show on SoundCloud and support its growth. If you're interested in learning more about supporting the show directly, go to patreon.com/wabi-sabi podcast. And for as little as $1 a month, you'd be supporting the show. And starting at $5 a month, that tier would get you an artwork gift sent by me every year. So today I have the pleasure of speaking with Elyse Peterson. She is the founder of Tealet. Tealet is an online marketplace. It is a transparent bridge between tea growers and tea consumers. At the end of our conversation, I'll be sharing some links and other details about Tealet and more about Elyse. So without further ado, here's Elyse Peterson. This is very much like a free form convo, and
Okay.
I don't want it to feel so like formal. It's really like, it's the container of a podcast, but it's really like, it's a beautiful opportunity to like catch up with an old friend.
Yeah. Well, and it's wabi-sabi too, right?
And it's wabi-sabi. So exactly. I'm not aiming for any, the same perfect. And that's the beauty of it. And I just cracked open some ripe puer. Cause that's funny. I was going to like make some mate actually.
Mm.
Cause I kind of want that. I want that kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, no, I got to slow down right now and this morning. So,
Yeah, you've been having a busy day.
well, just, every morning, like weekday mornings are like, there are several touch points like our preschool and just what's going on like here in our neighborhood, and like freelance life, and then making time and space for this, these conversations. It's funny, sometimes I'm hesitant to call it like a show
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what that means if I like really refer to it as like, oh, that show, my show, this show, when in reality it's like, it's really this, it's like a space I go into
Mm-hmm.
to get to know people. I meet people this way, which has been a really cool new way to get to know people in this kind of a, public facing conversation. And then it's again, it's also a great way to like catch up with just people I haven't been in touch with in a long time. And yeah, the thing I'm doing right now is sort of reintroducing tea to a lot of tech companies through like a digital detox format.
Mm-hmm.
Um, addressing several aspects of like digital wellness, aspects of digital minimalism, because I've been like, since I sat with you,
Mm-hmm.
I like I've been spelunking in this realm of design, tech, user experience, and my goal was to help companies, help them architect, more delightful digital experiences, hopefully more ethical experiences. And I've realized in this rat race of living in this day and age, as a parent, you kind of have to put aside your ideals and just sort of like pay the bills and do what you need to do to sustain yourself, your family, and whatnot. And I was like, okay, well, if I need to do that, I need to do it on better terms. And so I am not making a career out of building designing websites or apps that suck people's attention away
Hmm.
just because it earns X amount of dollars. But now the opportunity I'm jumping on to sort of come back to all of these companies, in the name, salute, bless you, in the name of like, you guys, we're all really stressed out. Let's learn how to slow down. Here are some like practical, like sort of delightful, immersive experiences that I would like to facilitate. One of them being tea. And so offering tea is like, this is a sensual, or really maybe a better term, like a sensory rich experience
Hmm.
that sort of like it peels you away from your phone. You don't kind of want to reach for it. Maybe there's like an obligatory photo. I mean, it's a very visual,
Yes.
uh, you know, uh, experience that's easy to share, no doubt. But you can sudden without realizing it, people suddenly notice that, oh wow, I've gone like 45 minutes without reaching for my phone,
Hmm.
because it's that kind of immersive. And so um, that's what I'm pitching to these companies. And, slowly but surely it's turning into kind of just creating groundswell with that kind of awareness. But tell me about you. Tell me about Tealet. How's Vegas?
Oh,
How's it
Vegas.
all?
Yeah, yeah. Since we sat together, lots have changed. I relocated from Honolulu, Hawaii to Las Vegas, Nevada. That was at the end of 2013. And, actually, I think when we sat, I was also kind of pivoting and going through the changes in the business of Tealet to kind of where we are now. So, for maybe the past 6 years or so, our business model and our marketing and everything has remained quite consistent compared to when we sat together. So I think when we sat together and when Tealet had first launched in 2012, um, I had come from a background of international developments and also, being a food scientist. I'm very hands-on and processing and supply chain and transparency in supply chain. And so my efforts from day one and to now has been to create a viable business opportunity, economic opportunity for independent, sustainable, ethical, small scale tea producers. Um, and so that doesn't mean that I want to build the ultimate tea brand and the most famous, glorious tea brand. Um, but I want to build a really legitimate mass scale distribution opportunity for these producers all around the world that I've been meeting and networking with in my travels and my tea study. And so in the beginning, when we had met, I was doing a subscription box, and that was the concept that we would cut out all the middlemen, all of those middlemen, those traders, those wholesalers, those exporters, importers, retailers, all the people pretty much absorbing all of the value of the tea and oppressing the farmers. Um, I wanted to cut them all out and go directly to the consumer, and learned that for several reasons that business model is I could have built a great brand and become this famous tea explorer and provided tea, but at most I would have been able to distribute like 10% of their supply, which is not my goal. My goal is to find a very profitable opportunity for these farmers for 100% of their supply. So they don't have to put any of it into that oppressive system that they currently have to put it into. So we pivoted quite soon after I launched Tealet in 2013 to a wholesale model because I did find that a lot of people subscribing to our original subscription box were actually tea shop owners, tea brand owners that were kind of just researching what I was doing because really Tealet was one of the first to come out with the transparency and farm direct and stories of the farmers. And So people were curious and trying out the teas, and they realized, wow, these teas are actually very good quality, and the media and the story that we were telling was really valuable. And so these business owners reached out to me and said, hey, can you supply in bulk for my brand? And so I took that as a signal to act fast. And so we pivoted quite quickly, and unfortunately canceled that subscription box, because I knew that investing my time and resources into marketing that and scaling that wouldn't be as ideal for the producers, which is what I started this whole effort in the first place. And it's funny because when I started this, I was not a tea connoisseur. My background in tea is very technical. My first exposure to tea was being a food scientist, doing quality control for a very large scale green tea manufacturer. And they made like an unsweetened green tea in a bottle. And so, I didn't know about the connoisseurship of tea. I didn't know about gung fu tea style. I didn't know about tea ceremony. I didn't know about these things. I just, I knew the farmers, through my international development work. I had met these farmers from Japan, Taiwan, China, Korea, Sri Lanka, India, and knew their struggle. I was seeing it from, a social justice perspective of
Yeah,
trying.
like a first-hand experience of
Mhm.
you're literally in their you're embedded into their realities and seeing what their day-to-day struggles are.
Yeah. And so, it took a good like year and a half of building up Tealet, and I had already gone into wholesale, and to realize that telling that story of social justice, it did turn heads. It did get attention. People were interested in hearing these exposés of the industry and how things really work, but it didn't actually turn the dial on purchasing. Like it didn't really really motivate people to make that purchase decision. And like a year and a half or so in, I realized that what made my product different wasn't only that story of origin and transparency, but was the quality itself. And that's when I started learning about tea quality and tea connoisseurship, and that folks that really do appreciate tea and appreciate the things that you were just talking about in tea are willing to pay a premium, and they don't even flinch. They don't even think twice about it. And so, our marketing really has changed to focus more on that aspect versus just the social justice. And I can talk about social justice all day long if you'd like to, but what actually sells the tea and actually motivates the people and moves them is learning about the value and the quality in the product. And that's where it's fun, and a market like China where tea is very highly appreciated, not just by a niche community of people that practice tea ceremony, but by a very significant addressable market. It's really fun to learn about how they appreciate quality, and it's very metaphysical, actually. And they think it's kind of funny how in our world, wine connoisseurs, they want to attach themselves to like flavor notes or to even textural notes. But ultimately, in a place like China, where a very fair price, very high price sometimes is paid for tea, what they're looking for is more how are you feeling? How is your body's energy reacting to this tea? Where
Yeah.
are you feeling it? And that's been a lot of fun to learn about that because from a technical background, my food science background, it's always about what are the volatile compounds that, we're trying to find here, just put it into a GCMS and let's see, what the flavor profile looks like. In connoisseurship of tea, it's more like, let's drink this tea and sit with it for a second and see how much we value it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really incredible that I wish could translate into other products that we consume. I think it could bring a lot of good progress to our world.
I know it's so interesting to. I mean, and I'm so appreciative of hearing, all aspects of your story. Like your food science background, which I know so little about. It's strange, of course, strangely enough, or maybe synchronistic enough. Um, I just randomly started speaking with a friend about like food scientists. You know, my friend um, Jason, who's a plant-based chef and author and speaker, and he started mentioning some food scientists that he'd started working with a nut milk company, and just how fascinating, again, from like a technical viewpoint, just how food scientists can create flavor profiles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and yet here we are, we live in these bubbles of, LA, Vegas, where there are people who are paying premiums for not just quality, like high quality products, but also for experiences, for
Mhm,
immersive experiences, for food experiences, for like
mhm,
sensory rich experiences, right?
mhm,
I'm probably Vegas much more than LA. I mean, Vegas is you go there for these immersive for performances, for big production shows, for comedy, for like debauchery, like for all the things.
mhm.
It's like such a, it's like really, it's like there is the sensory rich capital of really of perhaps this country.
Yeah. And I think that's why, my work here has been so well received and so successful is, yeah, people are accustomed here in Vegas to be wowed and to be exposed to a new experience, and to appreciate that experience. So yeah, we've been having a lot of fun here in my tea room. So I have a warehouse here now with a tea room. Um, and so the warehouse is for receiving, the teas in bulk that we import. So really, our business model is to import teas in bulk from these independent family farms, get those economies of scale that typically that system that we're trying to fight enjoys. And that's a difference of paying $30 a kilo for shipping that a small scale tea shop that does direct trade with a farmer would pay for importing 5 kilos of tea from China or Taiwan, reducing that $30 a kilo to like $3 a kilo, $4 a kilo, can be world changing for business, and really create that opportunity for these farmers that I'm trying to build. But it does require me to have a large scale facility that can receive a container shipment and offload the pallets and break them down and send them out where they need to go. So I have this large warehouse space, which I only use when these shipments come in. So the rest of the time, it's a pretty open, just blank industrial looking space. And so we've had a lot of fun in building that space up into a venue.
Yeah.
And this year in particular, I've committed myself to spending more time here in Vegas and cultivating the community here and doing at least 2 events a month. And so these have been music festivals. For April 1st, we're doing a comedy night. So, April Fool's Tea Party. And really all of these parties have tea as the backbone. And it's funny you were talking about your work in trying to distract people from their technology through tea. Um, we're trying to do the same thing with
Yeah.
distracting people from the typical intoxicants that they're used to having,
Yes.
those crutches that they have. And uh,
Yeah.
a good example is we hosted a album release for a really popular young band here in town, and they had maybe 150 or so of their followers, their fans, come for their show. And these are like Gen Zers who, are used to seeing this band in dive bars or, other venues that are very alcohol centric. And they came here and we had no alcohol offered, only tea, but lots of tea. We have a large tea table, with multiple tea servers, doing gung fu, and then also cold brew on tap all throughout the facility. Um,
Nice.
and so people constantly had their cup filled with tea. And these young kids, which the band was actually very concerned that they were going to become anxious or they were going to become, you know uh wanting alcohol, that there's no alcohol there. They were going to complain about that or something, but there was not a single complaint. People were totally lit. Like there was no, there, people were just as lit as if they were at a bar enjoying this music, but
Yeah.
they were all Tealet, and
Yeah.
really conscious and really caring of each other and holding space for each other, and like the cleanup after the end of the party was a cinch, like
Yeah.
because you're very respectful to the space and respectful to others in the space. So I think that there's a lot of power in offering that experience, especially to young people. um because Vegas is not just about debauchery, or nightlife in general anywhere is not just about getting intoxicated and doing bad things, but it can be an enlightening experience that empowers you.
That's amazing. I love like that because I mean, it's such a. I can only imagine in some respects, not to paint it as such, but in some respects, like yeah, like focusing on local events that are free of intoxicants could be an uphill battle depending on who you're trying to collaborate with or partner with.
Mhm.
Um, and yet, if 100 people are in the warehouse and there's tea there, then there's the, well, we're all doing this, it must be good if she's trying something or if he's trying something, like maybe this is great. Like there's that, like you don't need a permission slip to try something if like all my friends or all my peers are doing it. I love that whole aspect of it.
Yeah.
Um so oh man, there's so many questions I have and I'm like kind of bottlenecked in my head right now. Um so here's one question. Because you started off with a subscription based model,
Mhm.
and today I notice, everywhere I look, I stumble onto these types of similar, some offering through like Instagram algorithms or whatnot. How do you feel today about um, the subscription based tea model?
It's not
When
good.
you, it's not good. Tell me
It's
why.
not
Tell us why.
good. Yeah, it's not sustainable, and I have to tell this story over and over again to prospect clients, that want to source tea through our platform for a subscription they want to launch. Is that there's like a huge drop off problem, and this is not just for tea. This is for any kind of tech company that's trying to offer a subscription, which there's so many now. And it is such a noisy space. Like online sales in general is such a noisy space. There's
Yeah.
so many different options you have, and tea consumers, specialty tea consumers, are um, they're looking for a variety. There's not a whole lot of brand loyalty. There is brand loyalty for offline experiences because that's a real relationship. That's a real trust bond that's built between the customer and the vendor or the merchant or the tea shop owner.
Yeah.
But when it comes to online, unless you're like one of the first in the game that, has like hipster credit online, like a brand like Yunnan Sourcing or something. I haven't seen any company do successful, and I know there's companies out there, paying for press to make it look like they're successful and having thousands of subscribers and making all this money. But there is an opportunity to acquire a customer that I found. A subscription box is very appealing and exciting to a consumer, especially a consumer that maybe lives in a place where there's not, tea shops available to them or places that they can easily acquire good tea. But the drop off rate, the churn rate, as we call it, is incredibly high. You're talking 3 to 4 months and they're gone. They enjoy a couple of boxes and they're going to go. And in the online marketing game right now, which I'm sure you've been exposed to, there is a high acquisition cost. And investors, they may be excited about a new subscription box and put some money into it and advise that that company should put some money into traffic and into acquiring customers. um, a lot of times that investment ends up being far higher than the expected lifetime value of that customer when they come. You may say, oh, well, we're going to have them for, let's say, 2 or 3 years, and that's going to be a lifetime value of $400 or whatever that may end up being. So yeah, we can justify paying $50 to acquire this customer. And then, you're a year into building up that community and find, yeah, there is a high churn rate. And, some companies avoid that by making it very difficult to unsubscribe from your box, but nothing is more frustrating for a customer than, having to deal with that kind of customer service. So, for any aspiring tea company or even current tea company that is trying to put a subscription box together, I do advise them not to invest too heavily into it. Subscription boxes are fun. For a tea shop that does have like an engaged community of regular customers that are like constantly there and constantly a part of it. Yeah, they should have one. It's a great way to engage your community.
Right.
Um,
It's another form of engagement. Absolutely.
yeah. But you may find out that you're steadily only going to have, 40 people in your subscription, which is not a whole lot of tea when it comes down to, um, sourcing that tea. And then, every month you got to have like a new tea coming in. And so one of the big risk of a business doing this business model is, you project that you're going to have, 2,000 subscribers. And so you buy the tea for 2,000 subscribers, or let's say, for instance, like an influencer, like an Instagram influencer gets their hands on your box and they promote it. And 1 month you have this huge spike of, 2,000 followers. And so you source tea for 2,000 boxes. And then the next month they all drop off. And then you're stuck with all this tea, and the next month you can't sell it again, you can't distribute it again, you've got to like get a new tea. So there's this constant battle with inventory control when it comes to subscription boxes that unless you have like another type of marketplace to sell those teas, such as a tea shop or something, it is very high risk for like a startup to launch something like this. The only communities that I've seen this successful online only are like Yunnan Sourcing, and of course Global Tea Hut, which is probably
Yeah.
like the largest subscription box type community on the internet right now.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't, I mean, I knew you were going to say it, but it hadn't really impacted me to consider, like, because they're offering more of a sort of community and kind of a spiritual, um, not a twist. It's not anything, I don't want to label it as anything really, but because it's more, yeah, community education driven. And I mean, the magazine alone that they print and ship along with, the tea of the month is already, with the content that's in there is really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's a lot of
but
work.
it's a lot. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I can only imagine how much work it is. And my thought was, from a sustainability perspective, and me myself, like not being an expert on anything, but like just to question, is it worth, I know they have, subscribers and members in many countries. I know there's a really great Instagram community that also sprouted into like an app-based community. I know that they have an app for members to communicate, engage. There's certain levels of engagement that are just within the app, and yet I ask myself, is it sustainable to ship, I don't know, several hundred or maybe several thousand, envelopes from Taiwan every month to however many countries? Would it be wiser for them to reduce costs to do it on a quarterly basis? But then will people drop off because they're not getting as much tea every month? It's it is fascinating. I guess the thing that really kind of starts to get my brain cooking, and especially within this subject, is if a startup is going into like, I want to create this tea subscription, here's my edge. They're not trying to disrupt the market for tea subscriptions. They're just trying to cash in. At least that's what they're assuming.
Mhm.
No one's doing anything new. There's really not really a whole lot of innovation in terms of like a monthly tea box. It's really just uh, there's this kind of like form of like homogenization of like it is a box. You give us your credit card information one time. It's an automatic thing. You just receive it in the mail every month. And how you choose to engage is up to you. Maybe you'll Instagram it, and so we'll get promotion that way.
Mhm.
But where is there actually a conversation happening between supposed brand and the consumer? That's where I'm really interested, or maybe I'm like like looking for it. I don't seem to see any substance there because brands are assuming this is what people want. People are kind of living in this um I don't know, kind of automation, like high convenience life. I could whip out my phone, request a ride, get food delivered, have this tea box show up every month. There's no human interaction anywhere,
Mhm.
you know? Like that's what worries me. That's what kind of fueled me to like, when I met you, like when you came over, I was exploring at the moment, like maybe after my years of like being in service, like doing kung fu at events throughout Los Angeles, enough people would ask me, this is what, yeah, back in 2012, like, oh, where do I get this? This is really tasty. This is really interesting. I like this experience. Can I buy it from you? Do you sell this tea? Do you sell these teacups, et cetera, et cetera? So for a year, I tried, branding myself. I remember getting a lot. I remember receiving a lot of wonderful samples from you. Like, well, maybe I do want to source tea from you wholesale to start this, tea company. I called it Teometry. I did. I know I labeled I basically white labeled teas that I would get from purveyors. I'd say that maybe the biggest source I was going to at the time was Silk Road Teas, which is they're based up in Northern California. And the most I did really was I started engaging local restaurants and basically suggesting let's create a tea centric menu that would pair well with your food items.
Mhm.
Again, I'm thinking about experiences. Maybe we can do tea. Maybe I can train your staff to do like kind of gung fu style offerings as that people can request. And kind of what I got, the gist of what I got from that pitching that experience was that sounds really wonderful, but we need a high turnover rate in our restaurant because we need to pay our overhead and pay our employees.
Mhm.
So then I realized at the time, maybe what I was thinking about was only a supreme leisure, like maybe spa centric or like expensive hotel kind of, turnkey type experience. And now that's totally changed because on the one hand, we have this sort of rampant sort of zombie apocalypse of what I was mentioning 2 minutes ago with like people living in like super high convenience, app based, um, dopamine hits, getting a ride, getting food delivered,
Mhm.
having like little to no human interaction. Or what is it? Like Amazon is making like grocery stores that have no employees. You just sort of like you scan
Yeah.
your Prime number and then you could just like select your items and walk out the store. There's
Yep.
no human interaction, right?
Yeah.
And yet you also have, you know, uh, people seeking out and paying money for or queuing up for or reserving spaces for immersive experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Like like dinner experiences from like a amazing chef, or like Meow Wolf, and these kinds of like literal like immersive like creative worlds that you step into for hopefully hours, or like VR experiences,
Mm-hmm.
art experiences, um, uh, and then obviously maybe more like sensual or like sexually oriented experiences. But like there's these two extremes, right? You have that supreme automation stuff, which is so inhumane, really, because I think about it in terms of the people who are delivering these giving the Uber driver or the Postmates delivery person, what's their experience like? You know, uh, so like, and I'm for me, it's like this strange paradox of like every day you have that going on, and then you have these really high end immersive experiences, or like art exhibits that people are reserving months in advance for, just to be in there to like maybe take a selfie or hopefully have some quiet moment to themselves where like something is really impactful, or maybe it's a life-changing experience. Where's the in between? That's what I'm so curious about.
Mm-hmm.
And after 10 years of pouring tea in LA, being event based, I'm no closer to like wanting to start a tea company. I'm actually further away from that than I've ever been, because there are amazing companies that exist today that I would love to partner with. Uh, so like there's definitely a lot of tea out there already. I don't need to go and get it. I don't need to go and get it myself, because that's the story that I want to sell to people. I don't want that to be like I am an authority of such and such because I've had this particular experience. Instead, I'm only focused on um, sharing the experience and having a human experience be the business driver. And it's a strange moment to be doing that right now, and yet that's what I feel really called to do. And so uh it's really profound to hear that from you, especially like how you've changed your business model, how you went from one location to another, and how it's continuing to develop. I mean, for listeners who probably don't know this, I mean, Las Vegas also hosted the World Tea Expo many years. I only went one time, actually, 10 years ago. I guess, yeah, before I'd met you, and obviously before you had moved to Vegas. Um, and then it was here in SoCal. It was like in Long Beach for a year or two.
Yes, two
Uh huh.
years.
And I heard that now it's going to be in Denver.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So Vegas, yeah, Vegas is kind of this weird, long time hub for tea. Even though when I moved here in 2013, there wasn't a single tea room or tea shop, or there was a high tea experience at one of the hotels, but you know how that goes. It wasn't Gong Fu Cha. It wasn't what we think of as a tea experience. But now all of a sudden, there's a lot going on, and I'm not ashamed to take credit for that,
Yeah.
and um, back to your question you had before of where is the middle ground between, these two polarized experiences, this inhumane experience that we have with technology and efficiency. And, like I just like to sum that all up as the commodified experience. And then you have this like really high value immersive experience, and you're asking for the middle ground. And I say, maybe there doesn't need to be a middle ground, to start. Uh, you got two choices. Think of it as that. You have the choice to go down the commodity road, or you have the choice to go down the high value road.
Yeah.
And the commodity road for so many decades now has been the most pragmatic, business choice to make. The fastest money maker, the fastest mover, the thing that you can just get up and going and just go. But what we're ultimately seeing is that, yeah, it is inhumane and it is lacking substance, and people are seeing through that now, especially the generation that grew up on it is really starting to devalue that. And now I'm valuing these other experiences, immersive experiences, art, fine dining, these types of things. And so what I advise the tea farmers that I work with, what I advise the tea business people that I work with is, you only have those two paths. Anything in the middle, I call it no man's land. Like, it's not established and it's not worth pursuing because people just won't understand it. The market won't understand it. And the commodity path is extremely small margins, and it is going to die. That will be what is eradicated in our new, a readjustment that I'm currently going through right now. We're experiencing there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world, and it's bringing to light all of our environmental issues, our health issues, our societal injustice issues are all associated with this commodity path. And So, I think if you're a smart person that's investing in your future, and wanting something sustainable, going down that high quality experiential path is the way to go. And for a new business, it's intimidating and scary because it's not going to equate to immediate money. It's not something that you can pump, $20,000 into Instagram influencer, advertisement that's going to return, a certain whatever. It's something that you may have to work DIY for 8 months, work your butt off until 3 o'clock in the morning every night, to have your first event or your first launch into the market and only make, $100. And you got to do that 10 times over until it becomes something. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But it's going to be so much more valuable, rewarding, and having longevity in your efforts going down that path. So that's the path I've gone down. I have unrelentlessly gone down that path, and I'm a survivor of it. I can say my company is stable, and I don't give things for free anymore, and I'm like, really confident in the value that I provide to the industry and to the market. But it took years. I've been working on this for 8 years now, and for a good like 3 years of that, I was working over 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
Working 40 hours at my desk here, and
And
then,
you were traveling.
well, I was traveling too, and I was working 60 hours a week Uber driving. So you
Yeah.
ask what it's like to be an Uber driver.
Yeah.
It's a hustle.
Yeah.
Uber drivers are not doing it because they love being Uber drivers and
Yeah.
they want to get people around the city. Like, they're doing it because they got to survive and make things happen. And it may be your sole income, or for me, and I know there's a lot of people like me that were doing it to support, like a passion, to support something on the side, and to make it happen. So, um, it's harder work, but harder work always brings a bigger reward, and that comes through in tea too. You talk about tea and tea quality. It's I work with farmers, so like now we've come to a place where we specialize in working with like new world farmers. So these are farmers in India or Nepal that just 20 years ago, 30 years ago, all of them and their family and their community were all indentured laborers for an estate, like one of these big plantations, and those plantations are closed down. Like I said, that commodity path is dying. Yeah, we're seeing it already. Like the tea plantations in India, like they just close down because there's no more money to be made in it. And so, the owners who aren't locals there, they're usually business people from other cities or even, like other countries. They'll just leave, and the local people are left there with the land and the tea, and they're trying to make tea now, and they're trying to figure it out. And all they've ever been exposed to is that commodity path. And so they think, okay, yeah, we've got to just build a tea factory and, make a bunch of tea and sell it for $2 a kilo. And I say, no, that path is dead end. You already saw the white people leave because it wasn't lucrative for them. So, it's not going to be lucrative for you either. Instead, you've got to put in the effort to go down that other path of quality, of value. And they ask me, well, what is the magical recipe? Like, you're the food scientist, tell me, like, what are the steps I need? Give me, the protocol, and I'll follow it and we'll do it. And I say, there is no protocol. Like, the only protocol is intention. And that's deep, and that's within each of us, and especially when it's associated with like a terroir type product,
Yeah.
product that is associated with its origin. Uh, I'm not a part of that terroir, so I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you what a good intention is, but a good intention is gung fu. It's paying attention to every detail and doing the best you can with the resources you have available, and just working really hard. It works really hard. Like in the first couple of years I work with these guys, they're just trying, and they think they're working hard, and I tell them, no, you got to take notes every time you process a batch of tea, an experimental batch. Take as many notes as you can. I know you hate writing and you hate doing this and hate keeping the records, but put in that work and you will see the reward just magically. It just happens, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely the path less traveled conventionally, but we're getting to a desperate time, a desolate time in our world, and young people especially have the energy, and that's why I like to encourage them to put that work in, because it will reward in the end.
This is like phenomenal to hear. It's like heartwarming to hear, because like you
Mhm.
have such a you have this you have these relationships, you have these experiences being on the ground in these uh remote locations, and you see, like, again, what's happening from an economic standpoint, and how it's connected to sort of the global, you know I guess really the global infrastructure that exists and is dying and is being reborn at the same time. I have a more of a macro, I guess more, maybe just to go back a few minutes to what you were saying from a health standpoint, given what's happening in the world right now, and politically, but also just from a health uh, sensationalist health perspective. Do you know people or farmers or producers in China who are being affected by this version of the coronavirus, and has that affected tea production or shipment or movement of goods like that?
Yeah, everybody's being affected. Even here, we're affected by it. Like they're blaming the turn in the market right now, and on it. We're all being affected by it, and there's fear. There's isolation happening right now. So when I speak to my contacts in China, there's it's not like a complete pandemic, but it's like things are being delayed, like and people are staying in, so like getting shipments out has been a little bit of a challenge, and like workplace issues, people aren't going to work, and um maybe there's even like a layer of distrust and just kind of paranoia too, that's affecting how society is interacting with each other. um but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not there. Actually, I was supposed to be going there next month, and all of those plans got canceled. Actually, my entire spring sourcing trip got canceled, even traveling to India and Nepal, because it's too risky, to be moving around and traveling around, when maybe I'll be fine. I've got a pretty healthy immune system. I'd be
Yeah.
fine if I contracted it, but it, it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the world to be a part of that system that's making it a bigger problem for us than it needs to be. So
Yeah.
Staying close into our local communities, is the smart way to react to this. I don't know where it's going to end up, like there's so much different information getting out there. And, the thing that I just look to is there's some pretty cool GIS maps, that are, showing the numbers and where it's going. Looking at that, it's not looking so, bright for our future, but, who knows what's going to happen. But the product itself, like if we're concerned about drinking Chinese tea itself, like that'll be fine. The
Yeah.
virus is not going to be able to survive on a product and make its way here and go into your teacup.
Yeah.
So I don't think people should even give any attention to like that kind of paranoia.
Yeah.
Um, but you may see a difference in the price,
Yeah.
because of the challenges going on, and we should have patience with that. And I'm all for tea prices going up, not just because it's going to positively affect my business. It actually may negatively affect it in the immediate, but the long term effect of it, and my whole goal and what I'm doing is teaching people how to value things, how to value, especially something we put into our body, our food, our medicine,
Yeah.
really valuing it, is so important for our sustainability, because then it's going to cause us to consume less. And that's the source of all of that commodity problem that we had, like that the whole machine that has been created effectively through marketing and through all of this like deception, this corporate deception, is that we need to consume more. Like our value in life is determined by how much we consume, and that is so wrong. Our value in life is determined by our value in life. So
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate for anything that's going to inject more value into our society, and of course, like less consumption.
Absolutely. I mean, everything boils down to quality over quantity,
Hmm.
and recognizing from an economic, from an environmental, and from maybe a spiritual perspective that, like, yeah, overconsumption, or over purchasing is never, it's not going to help anyone, or it's probably not going to help the source or the region or the place itself, to have that kind of high volume extraction of whatever the resource is. Um, what is so given the fact that Tealet's model, has iterated upon, since its inception, what is your ideal partner, ideal client, ideal business that work with? Like what, um, for businesses who
Yeah.
want to partner
So
with you, what's ideal?
most of our clients are like tea shop owners, and they are people that are confident in their authenticity, that they are like a community hub for their local community to come and gather and drink tea together, right? My ideal client is not that person that is trying to build that image of them having expertise on a particular region of tea, and they're the tea explorer, because yeah, there's too much of a conflict, and it boils down to ego there.
Yeah.
um, you know but our ideal client is someone that is confident in who they are, confident in who they are within their community, and they end up selling a lot of tea, because they're just building a lot of trust in their community, and they're so busy selling tea and making business, that they're not trying to fuel their ego with this adventuring and this brand of them being the expert and them being this adventurer. Even for me, like I don't even try to do that. A lot of people say that, like they'll see my website and they'll meet me and they'll hear my lifestyle and what I do, and they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky. You could adventure around the world. I wish I could be like you." And I say, like, yeah, I'm grateful for the work I get to do. Like the my life has led me on that path, and I'm grateful for it, but that's not what this is about. This is not about me traveling. This is about land. This is about soil. This is about water. This is like, this is about people and communities that have like so much longer of a lineage than me.
Yeah.
um you know so I do that work, and it's hard, because on that one hand you get people that are envious, and they kind of like build this idea that, oh, you're so lucky you get to do it what you do, and then on the other hand, yeah, no, I'm running a business and I have to pay bills, and I'm not trying to mark things up. So like we get like a 20 to 40% margin on our product for like an online technology company. Like that's pretty low.
Yeah.
My investors that already invested in me, they have an issue with it, they don't like it, but I tell them, tough I'm committed to this principle that the producer of the product, the person where that product came from and the resources came from, they should get the majority of the value here, and I'll figure out the rest. I'll figure out how to scale it to make it work within that financial model that you need it to work in. But this is the principle that's behind it. And then you build a brand around trust, and then all of a sudden with our clients and prospective clients, there's like this higher standard they have towards us, and I'm like, what, why are you putting this standard to me, like judging me that I'm taking too much money? Why don't you go talk to FedEx about that? Why don't you go talk to the packaging company you buy your stuff from? Like, go give them crap about how they're exploiting the system. They would never do that because the standard they hold towards those companies is very different, because those companies had never built a brand around trust and transparency, and I did. And so yeah, I'm held up to a different standard. So yeah, that's my biggest challenge that I dealing with this. But ultimately it's worth it. Ultimately, majority of the people that I work with, a great majority of the people, appreciate and value this collaborative thing that we're building together. And they see themselves as part of collaborative thing. They don't see themselves as my customer. And like I'm the queen that's ruling everything and taking all the money in, which is usually how it is. That's how the usual corporate model is, that like that corporation owns the entire system and there's no transparency about how anything works, and no one's allowed to ask any questions about it, because it's just a good quality product. Just worry about the end product. Don't worry about how things work behind the curtain. And I'm saying, no, we should worry about what's going on behind the curtain, because there's some bullshit going on in this world. There's
Yeah.
land being raped, there's communities being torn apart, there's water being just completely taken out of people's lives, and we never talk about that stuff. And I'm like really passionate about building a business model that does keep accountability there. And I think what it comes down to is like micro entrepreneurship. When all of the system that conventionally a corporation would own that whole system. So like I say, like Starbucks is a good model. We're talking about tea. Starbucks is a good model for like a business that has created that conventional corporate system where they own the service point, they own the retail, they own the distribution and supply chain, and then now Starbucks is even owning their production. They actually own the farms where the product is coming from. So like everything happening within that process we will never see, because it's like in Starbucks like secret vault of how things work, and we'll never see, and we're not allowed to ask, and it's a faux pas to ask about
It's
it.
like a Disneyification of it's like happens behind closed doors. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what I want to do is take like that exact same operation that's happening from service, retail, supply chain, production, take that whole thing and break it up into like thousands of autonomous businesses that are all operating within their local expertise and their authentic value, and let them have autonomous voices within how we operate. So that would mean the farmer being able to put their hand up and saying, hey, I know like we've been working on this deal for, a decade now, and you guys are used to this price, but like I'm dealing with this issue now and it's just not working for me. And like let that be a legitimate voice for even the end consumer to hear. And the entrepreneur that's working the service point, the entrepreneur that's working the retail point, the entrepreneur that's working the logistics point, let them all hear that and say, okay, yeah, we'll work it out, because we want to make sure that you stay happy, because you're an important piece of this whole puzzle. And if you stay happy, then it'll keep the system going and getting stronger. And so that's how, the whole idea of externalized cost would be eliminated. Externalized costs are like, triple bottom line. They're like the costs that we don't factor into the triple bottom line, which, could be environmental cost, social costs that affects your labor or whatever, because, yeah, like supply is being challenged right now, because, the producer has been squeezed so much and they've never had a voice to stand up. Like any producer that has a product that goes into the Lipton tea bag, they've never been able to put their hand up and say, hey, like my village doesn't have water right now. Like we we planted all this tea for you guys because we thought it was going to be a good business, and now we don't have water, and our soil is like styrofoam and we can't grow anything in it. Like we'll never hear that, but that's happening. It really is. And so like this new like business framework that I'm experimenting with in this business model of Tealet is something that I call distributed entrepreneurship. So it's a micro entrepreneurship that allows for information transfer, for accountability, and ultimately sustainability.
I love hearing that transparency and storytelling in real time from every touch point, whether it's the farmer um, or the retail um, location. It's yeah, it's basically creating awareness of everyone else from everyone else
Mm-hmm.
in order to constantly iterate on the system that needs to change, or needs to be able to be held accountable to, yeah, like what's happening, or issues that are arising like every day. Wow. um
It's a step above Uber. They said
it's
Uber is great. Yeah, Uber is great. It's distributed. It's empowering to everybody. Any person that's struggling in life can just get in their car and make some money. And I did that. I was an Uber driver. I was an aggressive Uber driver,
yeah,
and I didn't find that experience to ever be empowering.
yeah,
If I ever had an issue, um, there was no way that I could even deal directly with the customer, like, and it was me and the passenger like directly dealing with each other. But then at the end of the day, Uber ultimately held all the power. And like that's not right. They said that like this collaborative consumption was the answer to the future, and there's still something missing there. There's not empowerment. Like if Uber had a way for like, oh, you've been doing well on Uber, here's a way that you could elevate your transportation business, and like build a fleet, or like find some way of adding value to a different aspect of this business. But instead, like ultimately Uber holds all that power. Ultimately Airbnb holds all the power. And so yeah, this is like next gen. I'm been working on the white paper actually for about a year now, and these things aren't something to take lightly when you're trying to introduce like a new framework or a new way of thinking. I want to be very effective. I am talking about it, so I'm a big fan of talking about things as part of like a manifestation practice. So that's partly why I'm telling you about it. Yeah, because ideas are nothing. It's all the execution, and this is definitely something that's execution based. So just trying to get the word out that forward thinking business people, entrepreneurs need to do better. We need to do better because yeah, the Uber model is not working. The Amazon model is not working. We need something better for our world.
amen, a woman. Would There's like so many other realms I want to go to. I'd love to hear more stories about like this this profound awareness of this empathy you have for everyone involved, for the farmers, like have you always been that way? Like, did you
No,
no, you weren't that way, so it kind of happened through. No, and that's also amazing too. Like it kind of, yeah, it sounds like maybe just through your career as a food scientist, that's maybe that where that actually uh sprouted from, like just that awareness of what people are dealing with in their communities and such. I'm um I'm curious also, and like this can go into like a part two, or like just like another chapter of this conversation, because I'd love for guests and for conversations to evolve into like, all right, let's catch up in like 6 months or something, and here's what's been going on in that time, and like, or here's what I'm pondering about, or here's what I'm kind of grappling with, within that time frame between conversations. But since you really inspired me to in this conversation to not really focus on where's the middle ground between high convenience, inhumane, um, commodification of everything, and then the other side to that spectrum, which is high end experiences or just really fully immersive experiences. I wonder if there's a way that we can do something together, either in Vegas or if you come through LA to focus on maybe a set of experiences that we can develop together for either a particular demographic. Um, for me, it's like I sometimes I talk to other tea folk and I love hearing about what's going on. And then I naturally get to this point of like, well, how can I support you? What can we do together? How can we collaborate? Because for me, moving after 10 years of like kind of being like a Han Solo and like doing things by myself, I, or I'm Chewbacca without a Han Solo, whatever it is, I felt so isolated
Hmm.
doing things that I've been doing because it means so much to me or because it's how I met people or how I was able to learn about other people or to be able to communicate effectively, ideals or issues that I'm been aware of. I mean, even like again, sort of digital detox or digital wellness as something that is becoming more of a conversation, especially within these sort of tech realms, um, being the bubble that it is. I mean, how do you feel about companies or people getting together to collaborate to do I don't know, outreach sounds like a really kind of a simple way of saying that, but
Yeah, well, let's do it.
let's do
I'm
it.
I'm down. I've got a lot of friends in LA too. I can link you up with that
Yeah,
are doing the good work.
yeah,
And I actually know of a venue. Like let's put together right now. I've got a good friend here in Vegas that distributes produce, farm direct produce from California to all the restaurants here. They have a farmers market. She actually has a farm in Malibu, and that is a gorgeous event space. And she is actually trying to build a little tea house there. And so that's where I have all of my tea friends go and do their events and such. We could do an event there, which is actually a great place because of the like foot traffic that we can get just from the locals there. The Malibu locals
yeah.
there are going to this farm to buy their produce and such. When we do events, we could definitely draw in an interesting demographic, that need something like tea, because they have the expendable income to support, a luxury like good quality tea. Um, and rather than them spending it on whatever else they think, some status symbol thing, or, which, now some people say that certain elements of tea and tea ceremony have also become a fetishized status symbol type of thing. Um, we can always ground it for them and remind them that, tea is a simple thing that everybody has the privilege of enjoying. And we really do need to address that because, everybody talks about tea having this long history and it's just always been a part of humanity. No, like it has been part of humanity for a long time, and it is one of our first like cultivated products in humans' history. But for the grand majority of that time, it was a very exclusive thing enjoyed by
Absolutely.
exclusive group, and only within the past like couple hundred years has it become something that we get the privilege to enjoy. So I think that's another really important thing to stay focused on as we enjoy tea and spread the culture of tea, is that like we are nothing in the grand scale of tea, and our connoisseurship of tea is nothing in the history of tea
Exactly.
relative to its history. So um yeah, let's do an event. That'd be great. I can talk to my friend at that farm and see if we can set a date, and it's a big space. um there is like a proper kind of like stage area where we can do ceremony, we can do proper ceremony. But in my events that I like to do, I don't like to focus on the ceremony. I myself do not practice ceremony. I've never practiced ceremony. I've enjoyed a ceremony, but I do not practice ceremony. I serve. I serve. And I
Yes,
it's really important to differentiate that, especially for people that are just getting introduced to tea. Because, yeah, you do not want to dogmatize new tea lovers, uh,
absolutely.
because then it's only harming them from seeing the full potential of tea. Because, yeah, when you get introduced to tea through dogma, through like, oh, this is a ceremony and this is the ceremony, it really handicaps that new tea lover from exploring, the infinite, endless realms of what tea has manifested into. Which it's a sad thing, and not just in tea and anything. When you dogmatize anything, you really are ultimately handicapping the future of that culture. So yeah, I appreciate ceremony, and I love to show respect to people that have put in the work for ceremony, because it's a lifelong commitment. The folks that I know that practice Japanese tea ceremony, or different brands of Chinese tea ceremony, it's not something that they just went to a cool event and saw someone do, and then all of a sudden they're a practitioner of that ceremony.
Yeah.
It's a humbling experience. And even these folks, they don't say they do the ceremony. They say, oh no, I'm just a student, I'm trying to learn this ceremony. That's a true ceremony practitioner.
Yeah.
And I like to show respect and reverence to that work. And me saying that I don't do ceremonies is part of that. I do service. I do put a lot of intention and gratitude and hard work into my service.
Yes.
So I don't devalue that. That's kung fu, like that's my kung fu, and yeah,
Yeah.
you should.
Time, effort, and dedication is what it's all about.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, let's do an event together. That'd be great, and we can, invite different communities, and yeah, be a little tea festival, a little like casual tea festival.
Yay. We're in.
Cool.
Now that it's now that it's on record, we have to, we're going to follow through with
Accountable.
it.
So this is part of that manifestation
That's the part.
practice.
Exactly. There you go. And for me, the only thing I'm manifesting is like partnerships and alliances, and like, I'm not doing things alone. Like I did it for 10 years, not doing it alone anymore. So, to be continued. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for the opportunity to catch up, to share uh, these unbelievable stories, and like real-time perspectives, and giving voice to everyone, because everyone and everything matters. And anything other than that is like kind of living a lie. So
Hmm.
yeah, I and others, within this field, within this large family, like really appreciate the work that you do.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I look forward to spreading more awareness about the work that you do. So
Thank you.
I'll put some links in, or if anything specific that you want me to point towards, I'll put it in the show notes. And
Hmm.
and onwards and forwards. Thanks so much, Elyse.
Thank you, Adam. Much love.
Much love. Talk to you soon.
All right. Aloha.
Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. If you're interested in learning more about Elyse and Tealet, please go to tealet.com. That's TEALET.com, as well as follow her and her adventures on Instagram at TealetT. That's TEALETTEA. Thanks again for listening. Please subscribe to the show. Leave some feedback in Apple Podcasts. And again, if you're interested in supporting the show for as little as $1 a month, please go check out patreon.com/wabi-sabi podcast. Thanks.